UFC Macabre betting show. We have 13 fights scheduled this weekend. I'm John Kelly. Let's hear the picks. We're going to get things started in the lightweight division with Maheshate, a -198 favorite. The comeback on Nicholas Mota is +164. And this is a matchup where we have two powerful strikers. Maheshate, very one-dimensional, but what he brings to the table is power, size, and decent durability. He has been hurt before, but for the most part, I'd say he's definitely got a durability edge here against Nicholas Mota, who brings a lot of those similarities as Maheshate. He's got power on the feet, typically looking to counter his opponents, but what he doesn't have is the size and the durability. He's been knocked out multiple times in his career, so this is one where I think it's a high variance matchup. Either guy can win by knockout, but because of the size and the durability factor, I am going to side with Maheshate. I'll probably look to target some sort of violence prop on either side, but the official pick is going to be Maheshate by TKO. Next fight up, we have Zhao Long taking on Kwang Lee. And Zhao Long currently a -142 favorite. The comeback on Lee is +120. And Kwang Lee actually took a short notice UFC debut against Chris Gutierrez, and he just was not able to deal with the kicking attack of Gutierrez, as many fighters can attest to. He just wasn't able to get volume off. He did end up, I believe, landing a takedown, but didn't do much with it. So it just wasn't a good account of himself. But then you look at this matchup against Zhao Long, and Long is coming off a split decision loss against Chong Ho Lee in a fight that I thought he clearly won. And I think a lot of you guys shared that opinion as well. I actually rewatched that fight specifically going into this week, and I still confidently think he won that fight. And I just think this is one where he's going to be the more consistent round winner against Kwang Lee, who doesn't have the volume that he has. Zhao Long is also very well-rounded. He's consistently pressuring his opponents. He's solid in the clinch. He can mix in the takedowns as well. And he's got good takedown defense. So this is one where I think Kwang Lee probably has more finishing ability because he's powerful. He's had multiple knockout victories in his career over in LFA, and we have seen Zhao Long hurt on the regional scene. So I think if Kwang Lee's going to win here, I think he's got to have the big moments and potentially finish Zhao Long, because if he doesn't, I think it hits the judges' scorecards, and I'm going to side with the more consistent minute winner, and I think that's Zhao Long here. We'll say it's Long by decision. That's the official pick. Next up, we have a fun matchup in the flyweight division as Lanair Kavanagh makes his UFC debut. He's a -375 favorite. The comeback on Jose Ochoa is +295. And you guys recognize the name Kavanagh because he fought on this past season of Dana White's Contender Series. Coming into that season, he was one of my favorite prospects, and he delivered in highlight reel fashion with a very exciting knockout. And the kid just seems to have the goods. He's got great striking, manages distance very well, has sharp leg kicks, has good boxing as well, good takedown defense, and he's got a very well-rounded skill set. The only thing that's even a little bit concerning with Kavanagh is I don't think he's the most durable fighter. He has been dropped on the regional scene. He does seem to be a little bit chinny, and that's a concern in this matchup against Ochoa, who's a 7-0 undefeated prospect fighting out of Brazil. And this dude's big for the division. He trains at the Shoot the Box with Charles Oliveira and a bunch of other UFC fighters. And he just seems to have almost like a budget Brandon Royval style. Like he wants to just blast away with body kicks while the fight plays out at range. But when he gets inside and closes distance, he's got some serious power as well. 6 of his 7 wins have come by knockout. So that's going to be the concern with Kavanagh. But I think in terms of the skill set, Kavanagh's clearly the more technical striker in every area, technical fighter in multiple areas as well. And I think more times than not, that's going to be clear on Saturday, even though I think the odds are somewhat disrespectful on Ochoa here in the +300 range. So the official pick is going to be Kavanagh by decision. Next fight up, we have Carlos Hernandez, a -192 favorite, with the comeback on Namjargal Timendembarel is +160. And this is a matchup where I think you have a clear case of look at who Carlos Hernandez has been facing. They've been matching him up against some of the tougher grapplers, Ray Saruya, Tatsuro Taira. These are guys that have good wrestling, good grappling, and are able to control guys pretty consistently. And even Ray Saruya struggled to control Carlos Hernandez at times in that last fight. It ended up 29-28 and was much more competitive than the odds suggest. And I think that's why at least early in the week. Now Hernandez has taken money, but early you were able to get good prices on Hernandez because I think people were just baking that in. Look, oh, he's been out grappled here, he's been taken down and controlled, and they kind of were just baking that into the line here. But Temben Dembarral is not this great wrestler. He's okay, but he's not nearly the level of grappler that these guys that Hernandez has been facing. So I think that's why we've seen money move towards Carlos Hernandez, and I think it's correct because Temben Dembarral is very aggressive. He's an 8-0 undefeated prospect fighting out of Mongolia. He's one of these road to UFC fighters, which will have a lot of them on this card. He typically starts fast. He starts very aggressive, very powerful, but he does get sloppy on the feet. Now, he does have a background in judo and sambo in Mongolia, so he does have a little bit of a ground game, but it's more like aggressive submission attempts. It's not like he's process wrestling, controlling guys. And I think Carlos Hernandez has leveled up due to his recent matchups, and they were just much better in those areas than this guy. So I think Hernandez is going to be able to keep the fight on the feet, going to be the cleaner striker over 15 minutes, and get his hand raised. We'll say it's Hernandez by decision. That's the official pick. And up next, we have the first of 3 Road to UFC Championship bouts. This one's in the women's strawweight division as Zhao Confang is a minus 410 favorite. The comeback on Shi Meng is plus 320. And we'll start on the Zhao Confang side. She fights out of the southpaw stance. She's very tall for the division, and she's got solid striking, solid power. She also holds a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she's kind of made a career of being a size bully at times. But there is a little bit of concern that she has shown she can be taken down at times and controlled. She was also submitted years ago on the regional scene by Na Liang, and she's facing someone in Shi Meng who is not the most technical fighter in any area. She was actually an underdog in her road to UFC matchup, and she's a big underdog again, but she does have a bit of a motor. She's going to look to push a pace. She has a background in catch wrestling, and she's going to look to bully her opponents, hold them up in the clinch, maybe land some takedowns if she can. So I think at this number, she's going to be a little bit more competitive than the odds suggest, but I do think Fang's size is going to be a problem for her. Fang's going to be the better striker as well, and I expect her to get her hand raised. We'll say it's Fang by decision. That's the official pick. And the next Road to UFC Championship bout is in the men's flyweight division. We have Dong Hoon Choi facing Karu Sahota. This one's currently lined as a pick'em, and I get why, because this should play out as a very competitive matchup. We'll start on the Choi side. He's an 8-0 undefeated prospect fighting out of South Korea, and he fights out of the southpaw stance, but he's very comfortable switching stances, and he's looking to do most of his damage with those leg kicks. He's got very powerful leg kicks. He also competed on the Combat Sambo national team, so he has a little bit of a ground game as well. And then on the flip side, Cejudo, very tall and lanky for the division, does have a little bit of power, but he seems susceptible to leg kicks. And he doesn't have much meat on those legs either. He can also be taken down at times. We've seen him taken down and controlled, which is a concern. So this is one where, like I said, I think it's going to play out pretty competitively because Choi, despite having some advantages, I think, he also tends to fight on thin margins. That's why we've seen him go to split decision so many times in his young career. And that's kind of what I see happening here, is one that's just neither guy putting a clear stamp on rounds, and it ends up being a dicey decision that could go either way. But I'm going to favor slightly the Choi side. I think he has a little bit of upside if he can lean on that judo background, get some takedowns, or potentially land a big shot on the feet as well. So we'll say it's Choi by decision. That's the official pick. And up next, we have the third championship fight in the Road to UFC tournament. This one's in the bantamweight division as Su Young Yu is a minus 160 favorite. The comeback on Bayergang Jai Lacey is plus 140. And we'll start on the Su Young Yu side. This guy is primarily a grappler. He's a 13-3 prospect fighting out of South Korea, and he holds a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it's very clear that that's the game plan. He's going to look to be aggressive with the takedowns, get the fight where he needs it, and try to finish you on the mat. And on the flip side, Jai Lacey is a pretty well-rounded fighter. He's a 16-5 prospect, and he seems to have a decent skill set wherever the fight goes. He's got power on the feet, but he's also shown the ability to land takedowns. He actually has good entries and good timing on his takedowns as well, but I don't think that's going to be the game plan here. He probably wants to avoid going to the mat with Su Young Yu, and ultimately, I am going to side with the Su Young Yu side because even though I think Jailisi has some power advantages in this spot and potentially a striking advantage as well. He has shown he can be hurt on the feet, and he has been submitted twice in his career. So I think Su Young-yu eventually gets the fight where he needs it and ends up finding the finish. We'll say it's Su Young-yu by submission. That's the official pick. And next fight up, we have Zhang Min Yang, a -310 favorite with UFC newcomer Ozzy Diaz on the comeback at +250. And you guys recognize the name Ozzy Diaz because he fought on Contender Series a couple years back and was knocked out by Joe Pyfer, my guy. And now he's actually rattled off 2 straight wins over an LFA. He won both of those by knockout as well. That's how he's won most of his fights, and he typically does so early. He's a powerful counter striker with not much else to his game. On the flip side, Zhang Min Yang is a powerful striker with not much else to his game. But what Min Yang has that Diaz doesn't is he's going to be the bigger fighter. He's the natural light heavyweight here. Ozzy Diaz moving up from middleweight, so he's going to have a little bit of a size advantage, and he also is going to be a little bit more powerful, I think, and he's more willing to put volume out there, whereas Diaz is kind of sitting back and waiting to land that one big shot. So this is one where I think either guy's capable of hurting each other, but I'm going to side with Zhang Min Yang. I think he gets it done inside the distance. We'll say it's Min Yang by TKO. That's the official pick. And kicking off the main card, we have Carlos Ulberg, a -250 favorite. The comeback on Volkan Ozdemir is +205. And we'll start on the Ulberg side. He's really had just that one blemish on his UFC record against Kennedy Nzechukwu early on in his career. Gassed out trying to chase the finish early, completely gassed, got himself finished. But since then, he's managed his cardio much, much better. And we've actually seen him look to have pretty solid cardio each time out, even earning a finish in the later rounds at times. The guy seems to have a very good skill set. He's improved some of the holes in terms of his defensive grappling. And on the feet, he's very tall, powerful, and he's going to blast those powerful kicks against anybody in this division. And I think in this matchup, he's going to have a clear speed advantage over Volkan Ozdemir, who's on a little bit of a win streak himself. He's coming off back-to-back wins here, but I think the level of competition and stylistically, he matched up very well against those fighters. I think he's going to be at a disadvantage here on the feet. I don't think he's going to look to grapple or have any grappling success. And I think he's the less durable of the two because he's been knocked out multiple times in his career. So because of the speed, athleticism, durability, and power, I think Ulberg gets the job done here. We'll say it's Ulberg by TKO. That's the official pick. And up next, we have a matchup between Kong Wang and Gabriela Fernandez. Wang is currently a -950 favorite. The comeback on Fernandez is +625. And this is one where Kong Wang is coming from a high-level striking background. We saw her make her UFC debut against Victoria Leonardo, and she blasted right through her. She wore the Joker paint at weigh-ins, which was awesome to see. And then she followed it up, right, with an exceptional knockout and a big highlight victory. But I think these odds are suggesting that she's like already a world champion or close to that level. And I still have some concerns with some aspects of her game. Fortunately for her, I don't think Gabriela Fernandez is somebody that's going to really poke holes in some of those issues that I think she might have, because Fernandez wants to keep the fight on the feet as well. She's a good striker, strong leg kicks. I think she could be somewhat competitive here, but I think the bigger moments and certainly the power shots are going to come from the Kong Wang side, and she's going to get her hand raised. We'll say it's Wang by decision. That's the official pick. And next matchup, we have Muslim Salikov, a -192 favorite. The comeback on Kenan Song is +160. And this is one where I think it's just a case of recency bias, because if you remember when Salikov was facing Santiago Ponzinibbio, the sentiment in that fight was like people were rushing to lay juice on Santiago Ponzinibbio in that spot. And the sentiment on Salikov was he's old, he's slow, he's 40, he just doesn't have it anymore. He doesn't have a ton of volume, doesn't really have the power that he used to. He doesn't give himself that many ways to win fights. And now it's just completely did a 180, not just in the market where he's now a sizable favorite, but also now people are like, oh yeah, Salikov, he should just run through Kenan Song here. Like, Listen, I bet Salikov in that spot as an underdog against Pons, but I think this is where you jump off of the ship, because now we're just seeing a complete 180. Obviously, the level of competition matters here, but I think the way they match up, this fight's going to play out very competitively because both guys are not volume machines. I already mentioned, Salikov is slow. He has lost a step, doesn't put a ton of volume out there, doesn't really look to grapple. And he also isn't even all that durable anymore. And he's facing someone in Kenan Song who has some power, man. Song's not the greatest fighter, but he does have power in his punches. He is going to be more active, I think, than Salikov. So it's just going to be one of those, it's going to be a close fight. I expect it to hit the judges' scorecards. If it's going to be close and you have a guy that's going to be just optics are going to be looking better. And by the way, this fight is in China, so he's going to have the home crowd behind him as well. I'm going to side with the underdog here. I think there's some value on Kenan Song. Not fully confident if I'll get to a bet, but I am leaning that way. We'll say it's Song by decision. That's the official pick. And next up, we have our co-main event. Yan Xiaonan, a -200 favorite. The comeback on Tabatha Ricci is +170. And you guys know by now, if you've been listening to me at all, it's baby shark season. I just think many times when you get the better grappler who's going to be aggressive and landing takedowns against somebody that struggles to defend takedowns and can be controlled in just a 3-round fight, I'm almost always going to lean into that at an underdog price at +170. I think Tabatha Ricci here is competitive enough on the feet, even though I think Yan is going to be throwing more volume and have more power. I think Ricci could be competitive enough on the feet and then have success with the wrestling and the grappling enough to make it very competitive and where I'd actually slightly favor her. So we'll say it's Ricci by decision. That's the official pick. Which brings us to our main event as Petr Yan comes in as a -310 favorite. The comeback on Deiveson Figueiredo is +250. And I don't have to spend a ton of time on this one because I think Petr Yan presents basically all of the stylistic problems for a guy like Deiveson Figueiredo, a guy who's relied on his power at 125 pounds and has relied on his grappling at 135 pounds. What does Petr Yan bring to the table? He's a way better striker, technical striking on the feet, way better than Figueiredo, more volume as well. He's historically extremely durable, never been finished in his career, and he's also hard to grapple, very good takedown defense as well. So it's one of those things, especially over the course of 5 rounds, I think those things are going to be very obvious. We'll say it's Petr Yan by decision. That's the official pick. And as always, guys, fightnumbers.com will have all of my projections. Check it out. I appreciate you guys watching. We're off next week and then back for UFC 310. As always, appreciate you watching. Best of luck, and we'll see you guys next time.